All right, hello everyone. This is Tiffany with Rock Bottom Wellness, and I want to introduce to you a guest that I have on here for today. And we are talking about the science of holistic aging. And I want to introduce you here. So here's her bio. Rachel Varga is a registered nurse and board certified aesthetic nurse specialist since 2011, an international clinical trainer, celebrity skin expert, speaker, and academically published award-winning author in the field of plastic and aesthetic nursing. Through education on skincare, skin and laser rejuvenation, non-surgical solutions, and healing lifestyle practices, Rachel helps inspire others with her unique toolkit to navigate and strategize aging impossibly well using the science of beauty. All right, so let's talk about that a little bit. Thank you so much for showing up today. I'm so excited to have you on. And I want you to talk to us about how sometimes people think that taking care of our skin is sort of a vanity thing and not really having anything to do with our health. So can we talk about that? Let's start off there.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on your podcast here, Tiffany. It's
Yeah,
just
you're
a
welcome.
pleasure. I had you on my podcast, the Rachel Varga podcast, yesterday, which was
Yes, so
a
fun.
fantastic conversation. So that's definitely a must listen as well. And what I've observed in nearly a decade of helping thousands of patients, both in the clinic and also online, is that oftentimes women come and meet with me and men at pivotal times of transformation in their lives, whether it's through, teen acne, or women are starting to thrive in their professional career and they're wanting to sort of do something nice for themselves, if you will, or they've gotten pregnant and breastfeeding, and then afterwards they're like, okay, what can I do about this pigmentation and some of the aging that's happened during this time of physiological wonder that's occurred
Mm-hmm.
in my body. And then also at times of menopause, because women's faces change shape faster through times faster than men's. There's actually a study from 2018 on this topic that I shared on my social media at
Wow.
Rachel Varga Official. And it's a really interesting graph showing that, when we look at our faces between the ages of 50 to 60, it's not just in our heads that our faces are actually changing shape. There is
Mm-hmm.
actually data behind that.
Wow, I've noticed it. I did not know there's anything to back it up.
Yeah. And then oftentimes people will meet with me if, say, they've lost a loved one, whether that's a parent or a spouse, or, they're retiring, their children have left the nest, and they're just really wanting to do something for themselves because they've sort of put their self-care on the back burner. And what I will share is that women, when they meet with me for the first time, and they're between the ages of 50 to 90, I have a subset of just beautiful clients that find me, and they've never done anything. They've never done, really any medical grade skincare, any chemical peels, lasers, or other non-surgical modalities to assist them on their journey of aging. And I take a look at some of these women and they're just radiant. That's really the best word I have to describe them. They
Mm-hmm.
walk into the room, or I meet with them online in a video call, much like this, and I can just tell that they're very vibrant beings. And so what I started to do is just sort of ask these women what they do, because sometimes I would see that these women, they're quote unquote older, but they're more beautiful and radiant and magnetic
Mm-hmm.
than some of my clients and patients in their 20s and 30s that haven't really experienced the aging process yet. So I started to dive into that, which is a bit ironic from someone like myself who's made a career of performing procedures. But
Right.
there's some absolutely common threads that I've observed in the women that have prioritized their self-care on the levels of body, mind, spirit, and energy.
Interesting. So, what have you found, if you can just touch on a few things, what have you found that these people have done that there's similarities between them? I mean,
Mhm.
I'm assuming diet is a big part of that. What
Yeah,
else?
I actually lay it all out in my ebook that you can get at rachelvarga.ca. It's called Unlocking Your Vitality. I don't
Awesome.
often have time to go into these details during one-on-one work, but
Sure.
it's a really important part of the message that I'm just really passionate about sharing. So I've kind of broken it down in an equation, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So when we look at body, mind, spirit, So when we look at a chemical equation, there's pluses, there's equal signs. So if we have body plus mind plus spirit equals whole human,
Mhm.
what happens is if something is like wavering in the aspect of body, say we're experiencing aging, we're not able to move as much. If we can sort of supplement and augment what we're doing in respects to our mind and our spirit, it can kind of, balance the equation, if you will. This is a principle called Le Chatelier's principle.
Mhm.
For every reaction, there's an equal and opposite reaction, right?
Right.
And so it's funny. I find when people age and they're not able to move their body as well as they could in their younger years, they do tend to spend a little bit more time on their mindfulness, their spiritual practices, their energetic well-being, if you will. And so if we're going to go a little bit deeper into each of those aspects, in regards to looking after our bodies, we talked about this in my podcast. You have to
Mhm.
listen to your body. If something's going to be too hard on your body, you need to be in tune with that. But in general, when men and women seem to balance their strength training, so weightlifting, weight bearing is really, really important for your bone strength, right? Very important. And then also flexibility and stability is also quite key. So when people are doing things like Pilates and yoga or Qigong practices, those are fantastic for getting those sort of stabilizers happening. And then there's also the third component, which is the cardiovascular component, moving that blood around, moving that stagnant energy around. One of the reasons why we tend to get a little bit anxious is we just have energy trapped in our bodies, right?
Mhm.
The same thing goes with, stagnant water. If it's not moved around, it's going to become stagnant water.
Right.
Also, from the health perspective, we need to move our lymphatic system, right? Get that lymph moving to detox. That's really key. And then for the spiritual component, it doesn't seem to matter what religion someone is a part of. They just have to have something,
Right.
not necessarily religion, but a spiritual practice. That's really, really key. And then from the mental aspect, they're doing things that light them up, that really stimulate their mind, that give them purpose, that give them excitement, whether that's the way that they interact with people, places, and things, their families, their communities, but having some type of involvement that just seems to really be in alignment with their purpose. Those are some of the key aspects that I find across the board that, very vibrant and radiant people are doing all over the world.
That I love that you make that connection and that you found that sort of in your own studies with the people that you have been working with, because we are so trained to think that, we should just do procedure after procedure after procedure and that will make us youthful and healthy. But it obviously helps, but this whole holistic approach to what you do is key. It's crucial. It sounds like, for the people that you've been working with and from what you've seen. So with
Mhm.
with that in mind, with how what we see on the outside of someone with just looking at their skin, and you're obviously a trained practitioner in skin health for sure. I see it in a different perspective from the nutrient aspect of things, and I can see things how they maybe give us that outward appearance of not healthy on the inside. What do you see as aging signs or symptoms or telltale signs maybe that people come in that you might see that they're not really taking good on the care of themselves on the inside, or spiritually, or emotionally, or all the things we just talked about? What are some of the things that you see when people are not healthy?
Sure. The first one that I would say is the most obvious is sort of that like radiance or that glow that someone
Hmm.
has. Because the healthier you are, the fewer toxins you have in your body, the less of a chance that you are going to be exposing yourself to toxins,
Right.
whether it's through, overdoing it with the news, whether it's through watching certain movies or being around certain people or doing things that aren't in alignment to your highest purpose.
Right.
So that's going to create sort of like that lower vibe type of individual. And you can just tell when you meet with someone that they don't have that spark to them,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
But it also does come down to sort of on the molecular level, when we are a little bit more dialed in, there just isn't the space for toxins to be held in the body because your body's functioning more optimally and our detox pathways are open.
Right.
So a sign when detox pathways are a little bit clogged up through conversations with, I interview some of the leading health experts out there as well. And some of the most interesting content that I've heard as of recently is that facial pigmentation, whether it's brown spots, age spots, melasma, can actually be a sign of congestion in people's detox pathways. So when we start to see these signs of aging, it is something to take notice of.
Mm-hmm.
Same with anything in your body. If you're experiencing pain or you just feel like something isn't quite right, and if you think you might have a medical condition, obviously seek the advice of your physician. What we talk about here is educational information, of course.
Yes.
And I just really find that when people are dialed in, they have fewer skin sensitivities or irritations. Mm-hmm. So another thing I often find is when women aren't washing their faces twice a day, they're not using a medical grade moisturizer that's going to soothe the skin. Basically, like a multivitamin on the skin is what I like to call a good moisturizer.
Right.
Proper mineral-based sunscreen, skin exfoliation a couple of times a week. When they're not doing that, the skin isn't being fed. And so what happens is that diffuse redness and irritation pops up. I have this really great cheat sheet on my website at rachelvarga.ca, the little pop-up that comes up.
Mm-hmm.
If you register for my newsletter, you'll get my treatment planning guide and sophisticated skin cheat sheet, where I basically just list off my 5 key things that I think that everybody should be doing. But generally it's that facial pigmentation, so browns, mm-hmm. but also reds, right? Mm-hmm. So redness can be a sign of inflammation in the body. So for you, Tiffany, as being an expert in nutrition, you understand that certain foods are going to be inflammatory, right? Certain things in our environment are going to be inflammatory. So that's why I'm a firm believer of really encouraging people to cultivate their team of healers. So to meet with yourself as a nutritionist and to do certain panels and lab work and genetic testing to really actually see what your physiology wants. You can Google and YouTube, the latest health supplement, antioxidant, skin ingredient, but what it really comes down to is, well, is that right for you?
Right. That's so true. I mean, I hear people obviously dealing with the nutrition, they'll come in and they'll say, oh, my nutrients are great because I've been taking this from that company and this from this person or whatever. And we get back their labs and they're deficient in those labs, and it correlates completely with the symptoms that they're, coming to me for. So it's really interesting. You gotta know where your what your situation is and then treat accordingly. So when I'm working with people with thyroid health, a lot of the times, and I can say this for myself too, that skin with the dryness and the kind of sallowness and it's just not vital, not radiant at all. Mm-hmm. That is so common with us thyroid patients. And also hair, hair that's brittle, it breaks off, there's just no luster to it. And I know prior to my diagnosis, I went through this phase where I was, going and doing whatever I did with my hair, getting my hair done with some color and, with permanent color. I don't know all the differences of them, but I was thinking that I was doing permanent color and it would wash out all out within 2 weeks or so. And looking back, I learned that it had to do with, because that's when my thyroid is really out of whack, but it just was never picked up on blood work or anything. And so my hair, that was a first sign for me that was really obvious, of course, looking back, where color didn't even stay in it. It would break off, it wouldn't grow, my nails would break, my skin was so dry, nothing could penetrate my skin, not even medical grade moisturizers, So what can you speak to with that, with regard to someone who has like a thyroid condition or anything else that maybe attributes to their skin health? What can they do to help that process out?
Sure. So this is a really great question, because we're going to talk about obviously hair, skin, nails, dry skin. I do have some favorite supplements and at-home remedies that you can do, sure. But also the concept of, if you have an autoimmune condition, there are definitely some things that you want to be avoiding, because you don't want to add more sort of insult to injury to your body, because your body's already fighting itself.
Yeah.
So the last thing you want to be doing is increasing that toxic load.
Right.
So when someone comes to me and they are complaining of loss of hair to their edges, which is actually quite common during pregnancy and breastfeeding, menopause, points of high stress, which does have a correlation to thyroid disease, because when your cortisol is constantly firing, you are going to be adding inflammation and stress to your body. I actually personally noticed a couple of months ago, it was a very stressful time on the planet. I'm sure we can all relate to what that was like.
Yeah.
I did actually notice that happening in myself as well. So it's really important for you to become in tune with your body, become intuitive with what's happening, and to not disregard it, but really dive into it. Okay, what could be causing this?
Right.
Meet with a trusted professional like yourself, myself. So when it comes to hair, skin, and nails, there are some supplements that I do like to work with. For example, products that have been third-party lab tested. I work with companies that are internationally recognized, that have been well researched by, again, third-party labs, over 15 years of data. And so that's really key to not just look at what the celebrities are using, because there's just been this explosion of celebrities posing on social media with these very colored and dyed gummy bears in their mouth. And then guess what? I think we all know what that might be, some of us listening. There was some third-party lab testing done on those gummies, and 2 of those gummies actually exceeded someone's recommended daily allotment for lead. So what happens is some of these supplements are manufactured in US or wherever, but a lot of the ingredients are actually being sourced from other companies, say from the Orient, where there aren't the same type of regulations, and they're known for sneaking in heavy metal toxins into various different beauty products. So while we're on this topic, I do want to just do a PSA that you should never be buying your supplements or your household cleaning products or beauty products, anything you're putting on your body, in your body, or using in your home, or even touching. I really strongly recommend that you don't try and buy these off these third-party auction websites, because you could basically get a further explanation on this if you just watch the Netflix show called Broken. The counterfeit beauty and health industry is exploding. It's actually more lucrative than the drug trafficking trade at this time.
That's crazy.
Yes, consumer beware. I'm all about promoting conscious beauty, consumerism, avoiding greenwashing, pink washing, blue washing. There's so many media things out there in regards to beauty that is really actually preying on our fears and isn't positive. So I love to talk about that on my platforms. So there are some things that you can do to actually stimulate hair growth at home, and that can include some things like dermal rolling, and then incorporating different actives into those micro channels of injury to support the skin and the hair growth. And if you want to learn more about that, I do recommend booking a one-on-one with me. And we have, I'm extending to everybody the special code for 15% off of if you wanted to work with me at Rock Bottom Wellness. So RBW15 will get you 15% off of a one-on-one session with me. So that's really how we can dive into if something's going to be right for you, because I can't really make blanket statements that dermal rolling is going to be great for your hair loss, right? So it's different for everybody. And then in regards to, nail growth, obviously, if you're having brittle nails, you have to work with someone like yourself, Tiffany, to figure out what's going on with your nutrients, what's happening in the background. And, dry skin, I often find that is linked to, men and women just really not hitting their skin on the 5 key aspects that I find critical. So cleansing the skin morning and night, moisturizing the skin morning and night, sun protection every day, and exfoliation. So when someone has sensitive skin, people are usually less likely to want to cleanse the skin because they're scared of making things worse, or exfoliating for the same reason. But in fact, when you use the right products, it's actually going to help to break down that accumulation of dirt, oil, debris, dead skin, pollution, so that your moisturizers are actually better able to penetrate. And then the last part of your question, when you mentioned, what people can be doing if they have thyroid conditions or other autoimmune diseases or conditions, is that you basically are going to be sometimes hypersensitive to procedures. So if you feel like something isn't in alignment with you, say a laser treatment or an injectable, don't do it. No one's making you do it. But it is important for you to know that personally, myself as a provider, I won't treat people with autoimmune diseases with injectables, because they are the people that are going to be hypersensitive, that are going to have the higher rates of side effects. So just in my experience, conservatism always wins.
Sure. Yeah, I can see that with people who have the sensitivity and then have the kind of inflammatory response happening all the time, that would exacerbate problems potentially. So that's good to know. That I think a lot of times people don't understand that what they think they want to do or what they should do or what they are, drawn to do isn't always in their best interest. And so it's nice that there's practitioners out there like you that will not go forward with that. So,
But not all will. And it's a bit,
yeah,
actually, I had a conversation with one of my quote unquote favorite colleagues in a nearby city to me. And she was like, oh, I don't care if someone has an autoimmune disease, they're on antibiotics, antiviral, we'll just treat them anyways.
wow,
What?
yeah,
There are, it's sad to say that a lot of people that do what I do, aesthetic nurses and aesthetic physicians, don't understand the layer of toxicity in the body because they're trained in one aspect. So
hmm,
I do have a unique perspective because I very much dive in head first, feet under the water, into the space of holistic wellness through conversations with some of the biggest health and wellness icons out there. So I'm definitely on the leading edge of what I would like to consider best practices, and that's always
hmm,
evolving. So if you have an autoimmune condition, I don't really like to say disease or disorder,
yeah,
right? Very
same,
negative.
yeah,
You just have to work a little bit harder with what you do at
yeah,
home. So your at-home skincare, your dermal rolling, red light therapy, those are all great. Your supplements, doing everything you can to support your body, mind, spirit, and just do a little bit less of the in-clinic stuff. However, some laser treatments can still be really helpful. But if you do know that you're on that sensitive spectrum to things, then you have to sort of stick up for yourself. And I recommend that you do avoid certain invasive procedures because you simply don't know how you're going to react, and you don't want to add that, again, insult to injury, that increase of the quote unquote potential toxic load to the body
sure,
because it's already having a hard enough time.
right. You're already struggling. Don't add insult to injury.
Yes.
So let's go back a second to that holistic approach, and your training is probably very conventional. If you go back to your schooling, I'm just guessing, I guess we haven't really talked about that outside of the recording. So I'm assuming it's a pretty conventional mindset. How did you bridge the gap? Was just your personal interest in dealing more from a holistic approach, or was it things that you learned along the way that you wanted to dive into that more, or how did that work?
This is actually a beautiful question. Actually, straight out of nursing school, I didn't feel done with learning. I
Yeah.
actually considered becoming a naturopathic physician, a medical doctor. So I actually did all my medical school prerequisites. So on top of my bachelor's of science in nursing, I did Gen Chem, Organic Chem, Biochem, because I wanted to find further ways to help people.
Right.
And then during that time, I'd received a couple of rejuvenation procedures myself. And because I started to notice the first signs of aging, and I'm very proactive, my mother lost like 80 pounds when I was in high school. She went through the South Beach diet. So
Wow.
at a young age, I had instilled in me doing, really looking after myself, how I eat, exercising. So I do thank my mom for that, obviously
Mm-hmm.
she was a night nurse, so she dedicated her whole life to caring for others
Sure.
for 35 years. It
Yeah.
took a toll on her. She developed estrogen receptive breast cancer and hypertension and all of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned how not to live.
Right.
Thank you, my
What not
mother,
to do.
but to the benefit of all of her patients the families as well, that she just touched tremendously. If you had a loved one under her care,
Mm-hmm.
they were getting
They were
top-notch
blessed.
care
Yeah.
in extended care homes, which is just great. But that's the conventional training, is you give. This is also what the millennials, myself, are taught to do, is
Mm-hmm.
we live a certain way, we should have an expected outcome. But what's funny is that expected outcome has actually been to the detriment of us. Go to
Right.
school, pay a lot of money, get student loans, come out of school, get a mortgage. Like our generation, it's crazy what the millennials have experienced if you actually dive into that topic.
Mm-hmm.
So what I first started to notice when I received treatments myself was I didn't really get a lot of pre and post information. I thought that whole experience was very lacking. So what I did was I was going online. I was like, oh, what can I take to reduce bruising and swelling and speed up healing? So I started to get interested in that. Also from an energetic, spiritual, religious background, my great-grandma Smith, she was a second ordained evangelical minister in Canada. So I come from a long line and lineage of just incredible women that are wanting to, share a beautiful message in the world to help others. So getting in tune with spirituality is something that's always been there.
Mm-hmm.
However, as I've gotten a little bit older, I've really dove into the energetic aspect as well, doing the inner work, also based on what I've seen just these other vibrant men and women doing, because clearly they're doing something right. So I started to dive into that a little bit because I treat a lot of other health professionals as well. And
Mm-hmm.
one of them, she's a psychologist, she recommended that I do an online session with this amazing woman in California. I'm happy to share her name if you reach out to me. And so that's how about 10 years ago, I started to really dive into the spiritual and energetic practices to bring forth grounding, balancing, centering, aligning. But what I've truly come to discover through nearly 10 years of personal inquiry myself is that radiance truly comes from as close to optimal alignment of your body, mind, spirit, and energy.
Perfect. I love that. That's probably not where you thought this was going to go when you first decided to go to university, become an RN and all that.
Heck no, but when you start to figure out
yeah.
what lights you up and your purpose, this is what lights me up. It's about sharing this message of, the science of holistic proactive aging. I don't really like to use the word anti-aging, to be honest.
Yeah.
I don't like using words with negative connotations. So
right.
taking charge of your health is so key. And empowering you to do that is critical because nobody's going to do it for you.
Right.
In fact, people around you are going to say, oh, maybe you shouldn't do that, or that's too expensive, or they'll guilt you into it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So for the baby boomer generation, they're like, give to the younger generation. They forgot about themselves. And it's just really important to do that. So looking after the skin isn't a vanity thing. It's
right.
If you find anything in your life that brings you joy. Say, for example, I put on my eye cream this morning, which was like an extra layer to what I typically do with my cleanser, moisturizer, and sunscreen, because my skin was feeling a little bit extra dry. And I did it because it makes me feel good. So you have to prioritize things that make you feel good, the foods that make you feel good,
right.
what seems to balance your hormones so that you don't tick off your thyroid,
right?
All of that. Not to mention the skin is the largest organ of our body. And for you, Tiffany, and I, our skin types, we don't have a lot of melanin in our skin. So we're actually predisposed to higher rates of precancerous lesions and also skin cancers. So those skin cancers, say, 10% of skin cancers occur in the eye area. My background for the last 10 years has been ophthalmology and oculoplastics. So really paying attention to the eyes, and skin cancer is a big thing that I see in certain skin types. And those cancer cells can actually metastasize into other areas of the body.
Right.
So we have to start to pay attention to our skin. Actually, over the last little while, I have 2 new moles pop up. So I'm going to be getting those checked out in a hurry. So pay attention to what your skin's telling you.
Yeah, pay attention and be proactive, with anything, your skin and potential skin lesions, cancer. But that's what I feel like I hear people do, because I don't know if it's fear or if it's just not wanting to dive into it. It's too much work. It's probably
fear,
nothing.
Judgment.
Yeah, it's just a lot of stuff. And I just, if I didn't learn anything through my thyroid cancer journey, is that no one's going to do it for you.
Yep.
And if you want to feel anything but just flatline, other than flatline, then you need to take charge and go forth and conquer kind of attitude you have to have and be proactive. and work at it. So
Yeah, with your story, you were basically told to just sit back and enjoy the ride
yeah, for
and
sure.
slowly crumble, right?
Hmm.
But you're just like, no, no, no,
Hmm.
that's not okay for me. That doesn't feel like it's in alignment with my purpose. And now look at you.
You're right.
You're spreading your story and message to other women to help encourage them to say, wait a second, maybe just Western medicine isn't going to be what's going to help me out here. Maybe I need to
Right.
look at other aspects as well. Western medicine, I mean, if I get a car accident, please, surgeons, help me out.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's definitely a time and a place for different types of medicine and healing approaches.
Right. Yes. Look at all the things, look at all of your options, and, hopefully find practitioners that are open to do that as well. I did interview someone on an upcoming episode that went through a really horrific cancer situation and treatments, and her oncologist was so open to the Chinese medicine she was doing, and the nutrition she was doing, and she is here, and maybe shouldn't have been, based on what was happening, if she would have just done what she was supposed to do,
Mm-hmm.
based on that. So that's a very good thing to drive home. Be proactive, get all of your healers in place. I like how you say that.
Yeah, and the thing is, there's a ton of Western trained medical doctors who are really into practices like mindfulness, nutrition, lifestyle
Yes.
optimization. And some of them, they are able to share that in their practice, which is fantastic.
Hmm.
But a lot of times it can be shunned, like looked down upon
Yeah. Hmm.
from their colleagues, which is quite sad. And I've chatted with a number of GPs that wish they had more time to get into all of these aspects of holistic health, but they don't have time. It's just
Right.
not in the paradigm currently of
Hmm.
Western medicine. So it's really important to do those check-ins with your physician if you think that you have something going on. Absolutely. And then it's also helpful to look at other modalities that you just are kind of drawn to. And
Hmm.
one little tip is, when you're meeting with practitioners and you're cultivating your team, I highly recommend that you create a team of healers, but not to become completely reliant on them as well, because the
Right.
power is actually within us. So if you're working from a budget, you just tune into yourself. Your body will tell you what it wants if you
Hmm.
just actually allow that opportunity for you to talk to it.
Right.
uh,
For sure.
right, so just because you don't have the funds to book appointments with this person or that person, that shouldn't stop you from just making smarter intuitive decisions for your body, mind, spirit, and energy. But when you're
Exactly.
meeting with a clinician for the first time, if you feel like you're being rushed, if you feel like you're just being sold stuff, if you feel like they're not really listening to you, or whatnot, then you need to pay attention to that, because there are a lot of practitioners out there, especially in my space, unfortunately, that it's all about the money.
Hmm.
There's also a lot of great people out there like Tiffany and I who really do care. And we're here to help and support you as best we can.
Yes, exactly. And the things that you're doing to support this audience right now is, you already talked about the code for the one-on-one, so the RBW15, and I will put all this in the show notes. You also have the Rachel Varga podcast, which is amazing. Been listening to that. And then you also have something coming up. It may have already maybe started a little bit, the summer skin camp. Could you
Mm.
talk about that a little bit? Just touch on that.
Yeah. Yeah, so I would say the first place to start is to book that one-on-one session with me so that we can discuss your skin goals. It's through a video call so I can see your features, how you're talking, how things are looking.
Hmm.
And then I really go down what you're currently doing and then make adjustments based on what your goals are, your budget, things like that. I work with people from celebrities to pensioners, right?
Hmm.
There's options for everybody, and it's just about tweaking it to make it smarter and
Right.
to really look at what you're doing from a beauty perspective in a more conscious way. So then I like to layer in, the at-home stuff, the skincare routine, possibly dermal rolling. That's a great option if you're on a budget.
Hmm.
If it's right for you, red light therapy, different hair, skin, nail, beauty supplements backed by a ton of research, well over a
Hmm.
decade. And then I love to get into different in-clinic options and help you plan it out and do it in a way that's going to just help you avoid the gimmicks out there. Because trust me, I spent about 2 years getting my hands on quote unquote some of the best tech out there, like laser technologies. And
Hmm.
I was just shocked at the varying levels of quality of devices. So whether or not the device was too painful, it costs too much for the results, or the downtime was too much, and that result benefit like wasn't there. So I do like to kind of streamline that for people and just point them towards technologies and treatments that are going to be the best use of their time and money in their case to help them address their goals. And then,
Perfect.
plan it out. It's a completely done for you service with a complete plan. It's great. And then summer skin camp is really fun. So that's more of like a group training. And I'm just really blessed to be in that community of so many like-minded women that are wanting to take charge of their skin. And so that it's bi-weekly calls, so 2 live Q&A sessions with me. So it's great after you've had a consult with me to then go in summer skin camp or winter skin camp, because I do this seasonally, because it's important to make adjustments, I'd say every change of season or 6 months to what you're currently doing. So I give you updates. Also, that's really key because I go to conferences all the time. Not all practitioners in every field go to conferences, a couple of times a month, sometimes, to really stay up to date with what's happening. And I do my best to do that, to bring you guys the most up-to-date info. So that's a great way to get those update downloads, is through those programs, Summer Skin Camp and Winter Skin Camp. And you can access all of that at rachelvarga.ca or summerskincamp.com or winterskincamp.com, depending on when you're listening to this. But everything is at rachelvarga.ca. And I'm just here to support you guys. The podcast is free, Rachel Varga Podcast. Look me up on YouTube, my blog at rachelvarga.ca/blog. There's tons of free stuff out there. And I'm just passionate about helping people make more conscious beauty and proactive aging decisions using the science of beauty.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for being on. And I think everybody's going to get some really good information to start with, and you have lots of options for them to get started with you. So those will all be in the show notes, everybody. So anything else you'd like to touch on, or any last words you want to say?
I would say the world right now is a bit crazy.
Yes.
Protect yourself. Make sure that you are doing what you can to align your body, mind, spirit, energy. Because if you're listening to this, you probably have thyroid conditions, and just really be mindful of that. And I was actually looking at some really cool emotional healing videos and strategies, and one of them was talking about, if you get triggered by something, remove yourself, give yourself a good 10 minutes just to breathe, continual breathing. So breathing in, breathing out, but not taking breaks, because sometimes we'll hold our breath, and then that actually can trigger anxiety. So just that breathing, and really feel into that emotion you're feeling. And other times you might have felt that as well, and just be aware of it, and then just breathe through it and let it go, so that you're not maintaining that high beta, which is that going to give you that cortisol dumping, which is going to have that long-term effect on your thyroid. So no matter what's happening in the world, if something's triggering you, if you notice it's causing you stress, I recommend that you step away from it. It's not about living life through rose-colored glasses. It's just knowing what is going to be your tolerance and what might put you over and sort of, stress you out too much. So it's just,
just take a minute and breathe. Yes, for sure. Okay, well, thank you so much for all that. And like I said, everything will be in the show notes, everyone. So have a great day. Thank you for being here. And until next time, eat well and be well.
Have a great day, guys.